Good afternoon, dear participants. I'm Hendra Gupta, representing Bremen Overseas Research and Development Association for the collaboration project with AIT, Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand. Allow me to welcome you to the third and the final webinar series for Southeast Asia. And then next week, we will start with the South Asia webinar series. So this webinar is a collaborative framework to operationalize utility-based wastewater monitoring and management in support of increased investment to attain the SDGs. The initiative is supported by UNHABITAT. So within the past week, we have performed 3 webinars. The first one last week on Thursday. We learned from Thailand about DSPOT, which is a monitoring system for publicly owned wastewater treatment facilities, which is also an effort to monitor the quality and quantity of domestic wastewater treated in those treatment facilities. And for sure, it relates to UNSD questionnaire SDG 631. This is also an effort from the Thailand government to establish the uniform data, which is by providing a common platform for data collection in Thailand. And also we learned in the webinar 1, connecting local efforts to national, in particular reporting the quantity and quality data of wastewater, which is a substantial contribution to UNSD questionnaire SDG 631. I think on that webinar, we agreed to respond to the UNSD questionnaire for SDG 631, introducing or perhaps adopting the UNSD questionnaire SDG 631 into the local system, into the country system, and helping the SDG secretariat offices or other ministries and also water utilities in collecting data for wastewater management. And just last Monday, we performed our second webinar. We learned from Indonesia, Office SDG Secretariat in Indonesia. We learned also from the Association of Water Utilities in Indonesia. We learned also from speakers, former Indah Water Consortium head of ASEP, Mr. Dorai, and also from other colleagues, Mr. Ram, regarding citywide inclusive sanitation. So in that webinar, in webinar 2, one interesting point is that one data policy, which is recently published or recently established in Indonesia, which is charging one institution responsible for one data. So the setup in Indonesia is many institutions are performing sanitation in this case. Donor projects funded data, local government data, service providers or utilities data, and of course the ministries. So this variety of sources come up with data, which I think different for a similar subject, which raise questions on data validity. So one step from the Indonesian government is to establish a one data policy to support the UNSD questionnaire for SDG 631 data aggregation. The second point of the webinar 2 is that addressing the opportunities for water utilities in the current challenges. I think the common challenges in Indonesia, in this case, presented by the Indonesian Water Company Association. The first one is low connection, which eventually brings to low revenue. And however, PERPAMSI, or the Indonesian Water Company Association, mentioned that there is an opportunity with the growing demand in city sewerage system. So expanding the water utilities business capacity. Hopefully, PERPAMSI can also introduce the UNSD questionnaire 631 to help them restructure their current data management. And the last point before we start with the webinars is that integrating UNSD questionnaire for SDG 631 to current initiatives such as citywide inclusive sanitation. So the citywide inclusive sanitation, which was presented by Mr. Ram, was from Athena Infonomics in India. They have several functions and also outcomes, and each of those function and outcomes, they have indicators. So the idea is how to link those indicators with SDG 631, in particular for quantity and quality of wastewater. So hopefully also another lessons from Indonesia, which is performed by Ministry of Environment and Forestry. They are introducing, or they're currently working on or doing on an application, web-based application, which is called Sparring. It's a monitoring system for industrial wastewater. The biggest challenge now for this application, the Sparring application in Indonesia, is that to extend its reach. I think in the presentation it was mentioned only 60 companies currently connecting to Sparring. I think for a country as big as Indonesia, more than 10,000 of industries in place in the country. So that is the biggest challenge. So integrating UNSD questionnaires for SDG 631 will align different interests and also goals of monitoring quantity and quality of wastewaters. Those are 3 points that we learned that we would like to revisit from the webinar too. Without any further ado, I would invite our moderator today, Professor Chongrak Polpraset, to moderate the webinar sessions. Thank you very much.
So once again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar number 3, which is about financing wastewater and investment option to achieve SDG 6.3.1. We may remember that SDG 6.3.1 is the aim is to try to reduce or cut the percent of untreated wastewater by at least 50%, so that our water environment and our health can be better. And we know that to achieve this goal, one of the very important factor is the financing and investment. So today we have experts from 4 countries, Southeast Asia and also from South Asia. So the first speaker will be from Mr. Wansawang Uttajak from Lao PDR, Department of Water Supply. So Mr. Wansawang, if you're ready, would you please share your screen and make presentation about 20 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Wansawang. If Mr. Wansawang not yet ready, may I propose that the second speaker, Mr. Hubert Jenny, who is now consultant to UNICEF, to please make presentation. Mr. Hubert Jenny, are you with us?
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, 20 minutes, please.
Okay, let me share my presentation. Can you see my presentation, or do you have the wrong screen?
Yes, we can see. Can you make the full screen now?
Okay, good. Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. This is about data management for financing and investing to achieve SDG 6.3.1. And just, you know, I like to always take a moment to reflect why do we need to manage wastewater? And there is technical, there is institutional, there is social issue, and there is also financing issue. And that's, where we are looking at, and why is it a low priority for everybody. So the challenge, basically, as you mentioned, the SDG cover both actually domestic and industrial wastewater. I'm going to focus this presentation mostly on domestic, and we'll talk a little bit about industrial wastewater. So, the presentation of the workshop, the webinar, basically talk about the forgotten sector. And that's why I have this image, don't ever give up on sanitation. We have impact that are not seen, not perceived. Since the antiquity, and then we lost it in the Western country in the Middle Ages, and we started to take up sanitation as a major public health issue in the 19th century. We all remember the cholera outbreak in London, which basically kick-started sanitation. And I like to remind people, in those days, there was no question about private sector participation and all. We have a major public health crisis on our hand. Let's do what we have to do. Then environment became more important in the mind of the people. And therefore, since after the Second World War, a lot of focus was put on sanitation, centralized wastewater system. Those plants were noisy, smelly, so we built them out of the way, outside the city, long primary network, a lot of pumping station to get the wastewater out, so that we don't have this "not in my backyard" syndrome coming. Then we had in the early 2000s a socioeconomic issue. The World Bank actually was working on the economics of sanitation, basically showing that each country was losing X% of GDP because of lack of sanitation, but that was still not enough. People were not still focusing. Now it's becoming a question of water security, institutional resilience, and basically climate change resilience. And that is something that we need to preserve our water resource. And sanitation is a low-hanging fruit in order to preserve our water resource. A lot of discrepancy also per country between urban and rural, informal settlement. In some country, they are part of the equation. In other country, the decision makers simply say, well, I don't recognize those people, they don't exist. And we also have on the industrial wastewater in our developing member country, a lot of industrial backyard and regulated operation. And to me, at the end of the day, sanitation is all about dignity. Be able to do your own business in privacy and in a safe manner. Financing, country prioritize water supply because wastewater, I used to say, is 2 to 4 times more expensive than a water supply project. So very capital intensive, difficult cost recovery because lots of socio-economic and co-benefit, which are difficult to see, but that justify actually that sanitation is a public good that generate a lot of socio-economic and co-benefit, and therefore can justify the use of subsidy. But very difficult to get people to pay for water, even more difficult to have people paying for sanitation. And a complete lack of private sector interest for the sector, because if there is no financial sustainability, private sector, they are not philanthrope, they are running a business, and they are running a business to make a profit. So in terms of institutional issue, I'm going a little bit on the background before I kick in on the financing, because it's very important to know how all those issues impact the sanitation sector. So basically, are we talking about an environmental fee or a wastewater tariff? And should we combine water and wastewater tariff? This is a matter for discussion. Nobody holds the truth. to me, we should combine water and wastewater tariff. Why do we duplicate this local government responsibility? And why not consider an environmental fee that englobe waste management, wastewater, and water? Ownership, who owns the asset? From the septic tank until the wastewater treatment plant and the pipe. How can we increase private sector participation? For the simple reason, you get private sector participation for two reasons, and two reasons only. Either you need money, either you need the skill. If you have access to finance and if you have access to the skills, the public sector can do it by themselves. But we all know there is just not enough public funding around to finance the infrastructure gap in general and the sanitation infrastructure gap in particular. Effluent standard, so many countries shoot themselves in the foot by having effluent standard too tough. Effluent standard should be flexible, and it's basically, unless you have tertiary treatment, you don't meet the standard, and therefore the local and central government cannot approve the project because your project will not meet the national effluent standard. So a little bit of flexibility. If you look at Western country, how this happened, basically in the 50s, it was done on a piecemeal approach. In the 70s, it was done in a more systematic manner, addressing the carbon pollution. Nobody cared in those days about nutrient pollution. This came after. Once the carbon pollution was sorted out, then we look at nutrient pollution. So it was done step by step. And what I'm trying to tell you here is that we need to give time to time. And I will get back to this later. I think this sanitation is a decentralized matter, and people have a say in the definition of the level of service that they want. And the SDG give us some definition of level of service. And a lot of capacity development, because wastewater management is new for most countries, and even the utility doesn't have the skills that are required to operate properly a collection system and a treatment plant. And at the community level also, if you have a rural wash system operated by the community, they need to understand what are the issues and to do it in a safe manner. Social issue, I think the biggest thing is awareness and basically having people to have access to the service in order to meet the SDG. We need proper solution. We need to have, in UNICEF, they call it the leave no one behind. We need the last mile infrastructure available for the vulnerable people. We have technical solution. We need to bring more innovation. And you have institutions like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that do a lot of work for this. You have the World Toilet Organization, the World Toilet Association. A lot of stakeholders are basically trying to push for solution coming. And we have to recognize that we need some capital expenditure investment and tariff subsidies built into the system in order to make it work. And we need this participatory approach in the design to define the level of service, in implementation, as well as operation and maintenance. And we can use citizen report card promoted by World Bank, but there is many other assessment available. But we need to have a way for the communities to give a feedback on the service they receive. Technical issue, I think everything should be flexible, adaptable, and phased. I always say we should move from decentralized to centralized over 20 or even 50 years. We can deal with combined system and septage management. Septic tanks are here to stay. When you build a house, in most countries, you need to have a septic tank. And if you don't have a septic tank, you can have your construction permit for your house. So that implies septic tank maintenance. If a septic tank is well maintained, you will have a substantial reduction in pollution, but on average, less than 10% are properly treated. And in some countries, they didn't even exist. And the sludge from the septic tank has a strong potential for valorization. It's a sludge that has been maturing in the tank for a couple of years and therefore completely mineralized and very stable in terms of level of organic against inorganic. And option for treatment technology, energy consideration, influent and effluent standard. So on financial issue, I put 100 billions, but we need 1,000 billions to resolve sanitation in the region. We need to have time-bound and targeted subsidies, but who is going to pay CapEx subsidy? Like I say, for the investment, we have a lot of socio-economic benefit. Sanitation is a public good, so we can justify contribution by the central and the local government. Cost recovery from operation and maintenance, willingness to pay, affordability study, what people can pay, and then if the tariff are not enough, look at shadow tariff, again, subsidy from the local government. If not, the project will not be sustainable. If we don't have financial sustainability, we don't have a sustainable sanitation project. Phasing to cost recovery, we need to build in the habit of people to pay something and then to increase. Thailand had a very interesting example when they started to implement tariff, I think was around Bang Sen in the outskirts of Bangkok on the way to Pattaya. They were basically starting for people to pay a couple of %, and then every year the contribution to tariff was increasing. So that gave an habit for the people first to get a service, and second to pay for it, and with an increasing step. Household connection, they should be mandatory. There is too many, including in Bangkok, wastewater projects that are suffering for poor connection ratio. Not enough people connect, and therefore the plant is over-designed. There is not enough wastewater. The wastewater get diluted. Not good. And why do we agree that in most countries the connection cost is part of the tariff? Why we cannot do the same on sanitation? Poor people can pay a monthly fee or tariff. They cannot pay a big lump sum of $500, $500 to pay for the connection cost. And therefore, all the international financing institutions acknowledge that the connection cost, whether for water or wastewater, is a barrier to access the service, and the sanitation project need to take this into consideration. So we can use output-based aid for poor household and revolving fund for other, where they basically get access to a very cheap loan or no interest loan in order to finance their household connection. But we need a solution. If not, people are not going to connect. We need leveraging to scale up, because at some stage we're moving from grant to loan to private and commercial financing, and this takes time and a lot of money. And like I said, there is unfortunately not enough public sector money to finance this infrastructure gap. So in terms of planning, we need basically to integrate climate and social dimension into every sanitation project. You cannot do any infrastructure project, especially sanitation, without taking into consideration climate and social. Social has been on for more than 20 years, but climate is something recent. We can use adaptive planning, so make sure that we're climate proofing the infrastructure, and we can access, when you do that, you can access to climate finance. There is a lot of climate fund, including the Green Climate Fund, that are available to provide financing for this type of project. You have mitigation benefit. So any project that reduces greenhouse gas emission, you do that through demand management, water and energy conservation plan. And the Western countries set up the Global Methane Pledge. And because sanitation contributes less than 10% of the global methane emission, sanitation is a good candidate to basically contribute to the Global Methane Pledge. Adaptation benefit is, again, I say, is to improve the climate resilience of the people, is not to improve the climate resilience of the infrastructure. We climate-proof infrastructure in order to increase or improve people resilience to climate change. And we can maximize nature-based solution, ecosystem-based approach, and we can also use the water and sanitation plan. In terms of social dimension, gender, children, girls, people with disability, because we then increase the climate resilience of the people. Strategy roadmap, I say 50 years, we need innovation, we need realism and priorities, and we need a costing. If not, we have a dream strategy and that cannot be met. And I always feel very sad when I see, for example, some country with, okay, by 2030, I will have 100% coverage for rural electrification. But for sanitation, rural sanitation, it will be only 70, 80% or 60, 50%. Why do you prioritize rural electrification over water and sanitation? Not good. So this is an example of a country, I will give you the name after. In the 60s, centralized sewer was 8%. And by 2005, they were close to 70%, and 30% was basically individual on-site sanitation. A lot of subsidy from 1/3 in the 60s growing to 50%, and for the treatment plan from 25% to more than half subsidies. And this country is Japan. And Japan took basically more than 40 years in order to reach, and a lot of public money, public funding in order to reach 100% sanitation. So when I see for any country a roadmap that say, okay, within 10 years, we're going to achieve 100% water sanitation, I say, is not going to happen. We don't have deep pocket enough to do that, and we need to give time in order to do that. So this be a lesson. If a country like Japan need more than 40 years and a lot of public money, why do we expect a developing member country to be able to do the same in a shorter time? Not going to happen. In terms of financing innovation, we have to realize in a centralized wastewater project, the capital expenditure, the investment, 75% go to the network, the collection system. And out of this 75%, 50% is the primary network. So if you can find solutions that combine drainage and sewerage, even though it's not ideal, it's still a very good way to save investment money and make the project affordable. Capital expenditure wastewater treatment plant, 20 to 30% of the total project, depending on the complexity of if you are secondary or tertiary treatment. But it's interesting to see that even the international financing institution, everybody focus on the treatment and not enough on the collection, where most of the money is required. And then we end up, especially with tertiary network, with no connection. Sludge treatment and disposal, very important. Don't forget about it. You need to be part of the project. And that opened a very strong scope for decentralized sanitation. CSIRO and University Technology Sydney and Asian Development Bank have done study in Vietnam that show that decentralized solution will reduce the cost of the sanitation project by 1/3 up to 50%. We minimize pumping station. We therefore reduce the capital expenditure and the energy costs. We contribute positively to reducing greenhouse gas emission. And the cost of a pumping station is basically very similar to the cost of a packaged sewage treatment plant that can deliver secondary or tertiary treatment. So this is basically a business model that starts from policy. And on the policy, we need a vision, and we need to make sure that there is access to finance and responsibility allocated to local government. Local government, we need to build awareness to sanitation, because most countries, the planning cycle is a bottom-up type of, so the local government need to request money to the central government. The central government need to make access to finance easy, and they have incentive on public health, environment, water security, local economic development. Business environment, we need to have some incentive for the wastewater company. I call them climate smart utility. To me, best practice is to combine water and wastewater tariff. Even water and wastewater company, if you ask me, I think it should be the same company, and try to find a way to incentivize private sector still through management contract, because it's very unlikely the private sector will put his finance. In terms of financing, we need to recognize that we need subsidy, and those subsidies need to be targeted for what and time bound for how long. And we target the tariff to cover operation and maintenance over, I will say, less than 5 years. In technology, you can have the biggest problem in a peri-urban or urban context is the land area. Now, if you start the process with a local GDP less than $2,000 per capita, you put stabilization bond, which is an extensive land requirement. And then when the GDP increase, you go to aerated lagoon. So within the same space, you can cater to the increased wastewater generation by the city. And when the GDP go higher, you can move to more sophisticated treatment, activated sludge or sequence batch reactor within the same footprint. So you don't have to worry that you start with an activated sludge and then the city increase in population, and then your treatment plant is too small and you have no space, or the land is just becoming too expensive and you have to move the plant. In terms of planning, that means fecal sludge management, septage management is an entry point for sanitation. So I always say small city, small town, rural area, just start with fecal sludge management and do it well. Set up a proper service to do operation and maintenance of the septic tank. And this can be financed by the people, and you do awareness to sanitation to the people, you raise advocacy, and you increase participatory approach so that they understand what they're getting into. And you incorporate sludge management, energy recovery. So in terms of financing sanitation, this could be also financing water supply. Is a similar issue. You have a choice between direct charge through tariff, including the connection cost. Block tariff can apply also to sanitation, but if you combine the two tariffs, is no longer an issue. And lifeline tariff, a bit provocative, but there is a social service in every local government. Why do you impose this duty on the utility company or the community? Indirect charge, shadow tariff, capex subsidy, you can set up special fund with low interest or no interest and have guarantee from the local government, but those are what I call hidden liability. And then you have all your stakeholders that basically participate in the decision-making of financing sanitation and ensuring the financing sustainability of the project. So when we look on domestic wastewater and industrial wastewater, I'm not going to spend too much time, but you go from septage management to water reuse, and this is basically a mix of who can finance the capital expenditure, the investment. For industrial wastewater, CapEx is private, and you have solution where you have pretreatment because the factory is discharging into a sewage network and they need to make the effluent biodegradable. Wastewater treatment plant is customized to the process of the factory. You can understand that metal processing factory will have a process that is different than a food processing factory. And sludge treatment can be used a lot for valorization. And usually you have incentive for clean technology to do water recycling without treatment or reuse with additional treatment for indirect use. This is a study that was done in Vietnam by Ministry of Construction, sort of cost benefit. And you can see that the figure on top is about the cost-benefit ratio of private toilet with sewerage in urban area, so access to sanitation, and a sort of split of the benefit. But as soon as you have you introduce a latrine, you have much better cost-benefit ratio because more people can benefit from it. And the main criteria is access time and health mortality for Vietnam. So from the operator perspective, he has a few financing and institutional tools available. The first one is to increase smart wastewater investment, because smart system will help you reduce your carbon and your water footprint and therefore claim some mitigation benefit. Operating expense to improve efficiency and performance, and communication and stakeholder engagement plan. Those companies are delivering a service and they need to strengthen their customer service and they need to be accountable for the service they deliver, especially if people are paying for it. I won't spend too much time for this. This is a PPP model from the World Bank dealing with the in and out, and you can have access to those things. In terms of conclusion, I don't want to spend too long, but basically SDG 6.3.1 is set the bar very low and is a focus on access to sanitation. We can incorporate climate and social dimension into sanitation, and we need to do that. We can maximize all the co-benefit, include the climate benefit. We need to build awareness so that sanitation become a priority at the central and the local and the communities. I remember some survey we were doing on a revolving fund. We basically give each community up to $50,000 and they have to choose what infrastructure project they wanted to do. Sanitation didn't come on top of the list, I can tell you. So build capacity of stakeholder, build awareness, and recognize the need for a long-term vision to achieve the sanitation target that will go much beyond SDG 6.3.1. We need not only access to sanitation, but we need sustainable sanitation, and we need to increase the public health benefit, the environmental benefit, and the local economic development. And use the fecal sludge management as an entire part of the sanitation strategy and an entry point into sanitation. If a city tell you, or rural area or small town, I don't have enough money to, or the government don't have enough money to give me to do a sanitation project, just start with fecal sludge management, set up a service that is self-financed by the people, and you're already on your way to dealing with sanitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubert Jenny, for this very interesting presentation. And I'm very impressed to talk about the strategy of sanitation, including fecal sludge management. That's also very important. Also business model and also the climate smart utility. So for the audience, if you have a question or comments, please write down in the chat box, or we can discuss in the discussion session later on. Our next presentation will be by Mr. Bhushan Raj Shweta from the Innovative Solution Nepal. Mr. Shweta, if you're ready, please share your screen and make 20-minute presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Bhushan Shrestha from Innovative Solution Private Nepal, and I'm going to present on utilizing data of integrated municipal information system for project government investment in sanitation. So the discussion points that I will have is I'll go through the general process in developing sanitation plan and what is the challenge in developing sanitation plan, and then I introduce the IMIS, and then I present some use case of using IMIS data in sanitation planning and availability of data in IMIS to address SDG 6.3.1. Actually, I would like to mention that the IMIS that we have been working and we have developed is a bit more on 6.2, So 6.31, 3.1 will be the new. So we are still looking at it, how to integrate it. Okay, so in development process for sanitation plan, we generally follow the following steps, like analyzing the current state of sanitation in the city, identifying appropriate technology interventions, and developing multiple possible scenarios with different technology interventions, selecting the best scenario that is sustainable and complies with the standard sanitation framework, such as CWIS, and calculating the required investment for each scenario, analyzing the risk factors in investment, and developing a plan aligning with the local government policies guidelines. So this is the general process in developing sanitation plan. This is very, very important because we need to know the process, what is the process, then we can identify what are the data requirements for this process. So the challenge that when we are working for developing sanitation plan, the data is the key challenging. The sanitation plan need to ensure everyone in urban area is solved by step, equitable and financially viable sanitation services and system, achieving SDG 6.2. Since I'm working on the IMS for the SDG 6.2, most of my discussion will be in SDG 6.2. And data is the key success factor in developing plan and project investment in implementing the plan. And when we talk about the data we must be accessible and accurate and complete. That means that we need to have complete data set of the town where we are working, and the data need to be reliable and relevant and timely. So these are the key factors that we need for the data. And UN Water SDG 6 Global Acceleration Framework has also identified data and information as one of the 5 accelerators of SDG 6. So data is very, very important, and managing such data is very challenging in context of the current trend of developing sanitation plan. The data is a major challenging issue. So we come up with the IMS. IMS it is an information system developed to catalyze CWIS approach and achieve SDG 6.2 outcomes. And the main objective of coming up with the IMS is to change the systematic change to address the data and information limitation that is for sanitation planning, management, or monitoring and evaluation. And this IMS is the convergence of web, mobile, and GIS technology. So we have implemented almost all latest technology in this IMS. And the software platform that we are using is the open source software platform. Currently in IMS, we have 9 modules that is already there in the system. Like building information management system, in property tax collection support system, urban management decision support system, utility information management system, solid waste management information support system, water supply information support system, fecal sludge information management system, septic tank inspection support system, and fecal sludge management monitoring and evaluation system. So these are the key modules that we have in IMS. And in this system, you can see like there are so many modules which is not related to it. It doesn't seem like it is related to sanitation, but there are some. This information is very, very important to develop the comprehensive sanitation plan in the city. So I'm not going with this CWIS because I think everyone knows about it. But the CWIS is the key component that we have incorporated in IMS. And when we look at the IMS landscape, the IMS that maintains GIS-based municipal data and citywide inclusive sanitation database of the town. So almost all kind of data, what is required for planning for the sanitation is there in the IMS. Like when we look at the data layers, that there are building data layers and sewage network, administrative boundary, containments, contours. So these are the basic data that that is here, but there are so many other data as well. And we also have the tools. There are many tools, sanitation planning tools and decision-making tools in the system. And we also have data and information management system for sanitation service delivery and management, mainstream sanitation service chain. So this is a very powerful module that which will manage all the data while delivering the sanitation service in the city. And we have a dashboard for real-time monitoring and evaluation of citywide inclusive sanitation and service, including KPI set for service provider. And another powerful tool for in this system is interoperable system to integrate with external data sources. So different kind of data can be integrated in the system for different kind of analysis. So these are the key components of the IMIS. And this IMIS can facilitate in overall planning, management, and monitoring and evaluation of the sanitation system and services. And while doing this planning and managing and monitoring and evaluation of the sanitation system, we follow the complete sanitation service chain and standard framework. And the data that we have in the system is, these are the list of data that we have in the system, we manage in the system. There are 4 categories of data. There's urban data, sanitation data, revenue, and business operation data. So in urban data, we have almost all most important data like administrative boundary, building footprint, road network, land use, settlements, low income settlement, data and contour, waterlog area with environment sensitive activities, soil, water table, population densities, stormwater drainage network. So these are the key data points that we have in urban data. So we have we have in IMIS complete data about the about the town. And in sanitation data, we have stormwater network, sewer network, containment, and public services, emptying and transport infrastructure and services, treatment plants, landfill sites, city water supply areas. So all these kind of data that we have in IMIS. And we also have this tax revenue data in the system, so we can do different kind of analysis in aspect of tax collection or in aspect of revenue generation of the city. And based on beside this data set, we also have business operation data. So this data will be created when we use this IMIS during in the process of delivering sanitation services. So such like service provider information will be there, like FICAS laws data, public services data, customer data, and customer feedback data, public service feedback data. So all this kind of data is available in IMIS. And I have listed out what kind of data is required for the what kind of data is required for the planning, and what kind of data is required for the management, and what is available. All these things are listed in this table. And now I'm going to present some of the use cases where we use this IMIS data framework, which is actually used for planning the sanitation, developing the sanitation plan, and the investment and development of the investment plan. Like case 1, Nagar municipality. This is the one city in Nepal. Based on that data set that we have in this city, the IMIS is not yet there, but the data framework that required for the IMIS was used to analyze and to develop a sanitation plan for the city. So all the data that required for the IMIS was there, and all those data that what they have, they currently have, we collected those data sets, and those data framework used to develop the sanitation plan in this Nagar municipality. And with that data set, we were able to come up with a like what kind of sanitation system we go for what part of the city. Like in city, after analyzing different kind of information, different kind of data we have, and the topography of the city, we come up with a three zone, like sewage zone and FSM area zone and fecal sludge plus gray water management zone. So this can teach three type of zoning we came up in this for this city based on the data that we have, and all those data we have was the in the framework IMIS. So we had a complete data about the city, like the complete building footprints of the city was there, and all the road networks and all the sanitation data were there. So we were able to come up with like how many buildings will be there in the sewage for sewage solution, and how many urban poor buildings are there, and how many buildings that go for non-sewage sewage solutions, and how many go for FSM, and how many go for FS plus gray water gray water management, and how many houses are there, urban poor data are there in that non-sewage solutions. So this kind of data and with this kind of plan, we were able to come up with the data that we have in IMIS framework. This is the one example, like what kind of information we can generate, and this is not the sample data; it's a complete comprehensive data of the town. So this information will help us to to calculate the cost, the costing of the overall project, how many households are there, and how many urban households, number of buildings, number of institutions, what kind of buildings are there, how many commercial units are there, how many industrial buildings are there. So this kind of information we can generate through the this IMS. So this is a very, very detailed information we can come up with. So the quality of the plan that we are going to have implementing the IMS data will be, highly precise.
Is muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I'll start. I'll start again from case one. Okay. So I'll repeat this slide again. So we are able to come up with a data, such kind of data through the IMIS. So which will help us to come up with an efficient plan and calculating the cost for each of the technology of the scenario that what we are going to follow. And this is another case that we use this framework. The IMIS is already established in this municipality, and the system is there. We have just recently started here, and in this town we can come up with information, comprehensive information. And the good thing with the IMIS is, since the IMIS is integrated with the business process of the town, we can get, we can update the information. When there is a new building in the town, that will be updated. When there is new roads and when there is new sewage, everything will be updated. So we always get updated information. So that's the comprehensive data and reliable data. We keep on getting that. So it is a very, very powerful system for generating those kind of information and those kind of data. Like what we came up with in IMI, using IMIS framework in the Mahalasmi municipality, and that we were able to come up with 3 scenarios in that municipality. So like scenario setting. So the data that we can generate from the IMIS will help in the scenario setting and designing the system and costing the systems and economic analysis of the systems. Like in Mahalasmi, what we did is we tried to analyze, and we came up with 3 scenarios. Like this is the non-sewage sanitation scenario, and the complete sewage sanitation scenario, and hybrid scenario. So 3 scenarios we came up in this municipality based on the data that we have. And we also come up with a what is the lifetime revenue, and what is the lifetime cost, and what is the average annual cost in each scenario. So, and also we also identified nearly 2 times expensive. Sewage sanitation is nearly 2 times expensive than hybrid of sewage and non-sewage, and nearly 10 times expensive than non-sewage. So all these information we generated are from based on the data that we have. So, like for example, that what data do we have? We are the municipalities keep on updating the information and data when there is some changes. And like, for example, in 5 years period, they want to make a new sanitation plan. They can have a updated data for creating the plan for after 5 years. So this is okay. So yeah. So till now that we are doing for the SDG 6.2. So all the data that we are using and the system we have developed is focused on the this SDG 6.2. And we now I also I try to evaluate that whether the IMIS can provide the information that is required for SDG 6.3.1 based on the questionnaire that we have. I try to check with the questionnaire that we have from the UNSD. And when I look at it, these are the information requirement for SDG 6.3.1. There are 14 components, like the type of industry and households and water, wastewater treated in urban wastewater treatment plants. So all these information that we require for the SDG 6.3.1 to monitor or to plan or for the SDG 6.3.1. And also another information is population connected to wastewater collection system, population connected to wastewater treatment. So these are the information required for 6.3.1. And then I try to check whether IMIS, the data from the IMIS can fulfill these requirements. So what I found is like sanitation system attributes that we have in IMIS is like we have complete information about the sanitation system, what kind of system in the city, severe or non-severe, and what kind of on-site sanitation system, yeah, and the type of containment. So these are the information we already have there, and treatment plans. We also have the model for maintaining the information about the treatment plants. What kind of treatment plan is it, and what is the volume of waste collected and wastewater treated, and the use of waste. So all these kind of information, there is one model which manages all kind of this information in the IMIS. And similarly, we also have, I also check with the billing attribute, what kind of billing attribute information that is there in the billing database, and whether it addresses this information required for the SDG 6.3.1. I check with that also. And what I found is in the billing database that we have in case of Mahalakshmi, we have like the purpose of billing, and this purpose of billing mention that what is the purpose of that building. So that could be residential and mixed and industrial and commercial. Those things are there, but the requirement SDG 6.3.1 requirement for this requirement, this information is not sufficient. So if we are going to use IMIS, then we have to do little detail. We have to restructure the database of the building, and which is not very difficult. We need to add some additional field in the database so we can know that what kind of which ISIC code, ISIC that billing falls on. So this kind of information we need to add on, and also if you are going with this kind of information, industrial information, then we may also need to go with the other departments rather than outside municipality. Like I don't have idea in other countries, but in Nepal, this industrial information is managed by Department of Environment. So that is beyond the responsibility of municipality, but there is a flexibility in IMS that we can integrate, or we can provide a system, small module to the Department of Industry, and who will update those information in the system. So we'll have detailed information about that buildings which has been using for this industrial purposes. And when I check with this municipal data that we have in the Mahalasmi IMIS, like we can generate this kind of information, like how many, what kind of sanitation system is there, ecosan, biogas, peat, and septic tanks. So this kind of information can be generated from the system. And what kind of buildings are there? I mean, what is the purpose of the building? So this kind of information can be generated. So based on these two information, that many of the information that we require for the SDG 6.3.1 can be generated. So that's all from my side today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhushan Rajreta, for sharing with us the successful case study of applying IMS data in implementing the water sanitation system in Mahalakshmi municipality, Nepal. Thank you very much. Before we go to presentation number 3, may I now invite the UNHABITAT representative, Mr. Florian Tevanon. Mr. Florian, to please maybe make some remarks about this webinar number 3. Mr. Tevanon, please. Thank you.
Yes, good morning from Geneva. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I think it was very interesting and also intense, because it's 20 minutes, so I need some time to digest, and maybe as other participants, I may be interested to have the PowerPoint, because it's very long and interesting presentation. I think it's important to mention that 631 is really a new indicator, and I really also acknowledge the fact that during all these webinars, Andra and all the facilitator, you are insisting so much on the 631 indicators and the UNSD questionnaire to really explain that, and it's really important, because people are still, most of the people working in the sector are still working on 621, on 6.2, which is the access to sanitation. And I think that both presentations that we saw were also branded a bit like with this angle. So just also on the first presentation to mention that 61 is not on the access to sanitation, it's 6.2, which is looking at the access to sanitation by WHO and UNICEF. And now they are looking at the entire sanitation chain, from the containment to the safe disposal and reuse. So that was really nice to see in the last presentation that IMIS could be used to integrate 631 information, and also the challenges, as it was mentioned, between the municipality and the ministry for some data. But just to insist on the fact that 631 is on the volume of wastewater, not on the access. It's just the flow annual volume of wastewater, and the wastewater generated by economic activity and household, and the wastewater treated. So it's true that it's a bit new for many people working in the sector, and I hope that this kind of webinars and all the activity, all the advocacy that we can make and that we are doing now will help us to inform people that what we are looking at is wastewater flow, wastewater volumes that are used. So we are also collaborating on CWISE and the GATE Foundation to incorporate this kind of data. I think it's really important now to know how much water is used in your municipality, by which economic sector, and how much water is treated, where it is disposed, could it be reused, and at which level of compliance to protect the environment. It has so many impact on human health, on the socioeconomic development, on tourism activity, and now with climate change impact, we really also have many interest in knowing how much water is used and recycled. So thank you very much to all of the participants, and the presentation were excellent, I think. And it's also good to see experience from different countries. So we don't have so many participants today, but if people want to share also some experience from their country, they are welcome, and also ask questions to the presenter. I won't make it longer. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Mr. Devanon. Once again, for the audience, if you have any question, comments, please write them down in the chat box, or we can discuss at the end of the session. Our next presentation will be from Mr. Jivan Roy of Border, India. Mr. Roy, could you please share your screen and make 20-minute presentation? Thank you.
Sure. Can you please let me know if my screen is visible?
Yes, can you make the full screen, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you for the organizers for providing this opportunity. I'll just very briefly give a small introduction about myself. I'm Jeevan. I work for Boda South Asia. I'm an urban planner. We have been working in 8 small towns across South Asia. Mainly during this presentation, I'll bring in some of our experience relating to SDG localization 6 and 11, majorly SDG 6 localization at 8 small towns in South Asia. Whereas we have been primarily working on implementing certain SDG goals at the town level. In this particular presentation, we also will also try to give a glimpse of the status of SDG 3.6.1 in 8 small towns. So that's how the flow of the presentation will be. Again, when I say 8 small towns across South Asia, we are working in 4 towns in India, a couple of towns in southern part of India, which is Chintamani and Chikbellapura, and a couple of towns in Leh and Kargil, which is the northern part of India, and a couple of towns in Nepal and Bangladesh as well. So our project mainly focuses on water and sanitation. The impact area, as you can see in the slide, it's sanitation, wastewater, waste management, urban livability, municipal governments, etc. So this is sort of our footprint and the impact area that we are working on through this project. Again, as a part of our project, when we started working in this 8 small municipality, we understood that the municipality does not have a sense of SDG targets or goal. So that is when we thought that we should have localized indicators so that municipality can align their goals and objective towards the national and global goal. So that is when we thought that we should have a localized indicators, SDG indicators, a framework for localized SDG indicators with where all these 8 small municipalities can start using that framework and start preparing, aligning their decision making or the investment plan so that they can achieve their target by the end of 2030. So that was our main objective. Behind this objective of developing a framework for SDG localization, we thought we should have a standardized comparable indicator for smaller municipality, which is generally absent at this point. So when I say comparable indicators, that means that the indicators that we have in India should be comparable with indicators that are there in Nepal or Bangladesh. So this particular framework should also assist municipality in certain decision making and also sort of influence their investment decisions towards achieving SDG goals. So we will also, through this framework, we have decided that we will continue monitoring the SDG, localized SDG indicators at a municipal level, and we keep engaging with the municipality sharing this information with the municipality so that they can make discussion. The steps that we have considered here for SDG localization in 8 small towns, I would say. One, we have had in the first step 1 and 2 is basically conceptualization and developing a framework for localized indicator for SDG 6. And step 3 and 4, it was all about having consultation with the municipality and also expert, so that we can finalize that indicator and conduct a pilot study in at least couple of towns in this South Asian region. So moving forward, once we have finalized the indicator, we conducted a baseline study of all of these 8 towns. We did a primary assessment of the towns with respect to water and sanitation, mostly towards understanding the gaps that are there in the cities and how do they score in terms of SDG and national level goals, that we came to an understanding in the step 5 and 6. And we developed this framework in the year 2021, and we have started we continue to do yearly assessment using this framework, and we keep sharing the information with the municipality as well. So that is how we have worked. This is broadly the steps that we took to develop a framework. Basically, when we looked for certain indicators that are there at a grassroots level or at a small town level, it was not matching with the indicators that were there in the national level or with the global level. So that is why we thought like we should have a localized indicator so that that can be comparable and also be aligned with the national and global goals. So we have done some prioritization, and we have a self benchmarking process that we have done, and we have also set some performance threshold so that we can have some comparative analysis between the town. So basically, when we listed down, so there's a long list of indicators which I would not go through completely. So when we list down the indicators, we could broadly divide these indicators into 4 main categories. One is accessibility, efficiency, sustainability, and equity. Accessibility is basically talks about how well the city is providing access to certain basic services which are listed down in SDG 6 and 11. Efficiency talks about the efficiency of the service delivery. Could be the kind of treatment facility, treatment systems that the municipalities have. So basically that. Sustainability is the long-term planning that the municipality have. Equity is basically specifically when we discuss about small towns, about large majority, I mean sustainable chunk of the population lives under slum households or economically weaker section. So we have identified some of the indicators which also give out an overall understanding of the equity status of these basic services as well. Again, when we listed down this indicator, we wanted to rate each municipality, each indicators with certain concern level. So this is sort of a benchmarking system, or you can say point scoring system that we have incorporated in our framework, so that we get an understanding of where does the municipality stand. Again, summarizing, so at the end of the exercise, we had a framework that measures basically a framework that measures water and sanitation related indicators that will add to or that is aligned with global and national targets. So this framework has been piloted or has been applied in 8 small municipalities in India, Bangladesh, and Nepal. And basically, the data that we have filled into this particular framework is through primary data, so that there's a baseline survey that has happened on the ground. We have also connected with municipality to receive data from them, and we have done a point scoring system. And organizations such as NGOs, private or agencies, and also municipality was closely involved in this particular exercise to develop this framework. So if you can say that these are the, so basically for SDG 6 and a small portion on SDG 11, which is solid waste management, which is linked with water and sanitation. So these are the list of indicators on my left, which are there. These are the shortlisted indicators that we have that is aligned with global goals as well. Particularly if I want to highlight the indicators that has been shortlisted for under SDG 6.3.1 is percentage of household connected to sewer system, adequacy of functional sewage treatment capacity, and also sufficient septage treatment facility. These are the three indicators that we sort of trying to monitor at a small town level or at a grassroots level. So these are some of the consultation events that we did once we had developed the framework, and we had called in experts from different agencies, different sectors, so that they can give us feedback. So once after this consultation, once the baseline of the framework was finalized, we did a baseline analysis. So basically the pictures right now which you are seeing is we went to the users, we talked to the municipalities, we almost visited all the infrastructure related to water and sanitation in the towns, and we recorded all the data that were available. Again, these are the towns that you can see from Karnataka down south, Chintamani and Chikbellapura, and also some of the photos from Nepal as well. So once we have gathered a quality data, a reliable data, then we went about applying or populating the framework with the data that we had. So this is sort of, I think this, I would say, the end result of the, not the end result. So once we have input the data in the framework, this is the outcome that we are getting. With this outcome, we had a series of consultation with the municipality. Specifically, if I want to talk about 6.3.1, which talks about wastewater treatment. Here, one more point I would like to make is we have not considered industrial wastewater management in this particular indicator because it is outside the ambit of municipal functions, specifically when it comes to small town. So here, if you can see the highlighted sections, which you can see, the municipality, small town municipality basically lacks or score very less under when it comes to sanitation or wastewater treatment capacity. Basically, adequacy of public toilet seats, adequacy of functional sewage treatment capacity, or sufficient septage treatment facility. If you see, largely the municipality, more than 70% of the municipality has scored less than 2. So that is largely seen in this particular activity. So we have had a series of consultation with the municipality with this number. So we have also urged municipality to use this particular framework in this in their yearly action plan, which happens on a yearly basis, and also for the long-term visioning. There has been some success, I would say, in the 1 or 2 municipality, but the result of this framework has not largely been accepted in all 8 small town municipality. So that has been the case. This also, if you can see, this is another way of representation. One particular municipality, that is Chikbellapura municipality in India. So they have done extremely well compared to other municipality. This is one of the municipality which has almost scored 5, which has the highest ranking with respect to wastewater treatment plant and having adequacy of treatment capacity in their municipality. When it comes to septage management, there's still some drawbacks, but overall, what we can suggest municipality is that looking at this overall presentation, the red ones which you can see are the main focus area that the municipality has to do. Municipality has to look into in the next upcoming years to achieve their goals. So this is the message that we are trying to give municipality with this framework. As I said earlier, we had developed a comparative assessment indicators so that we can compare different small towns across different geographic regions. So this is how, like, briefly giving an idea of how the scoring system is working. So basically, I would say, like, for example, a municipality in Karnataka, which is Chikbellapura, so they are scoring 2.9 in terms of accessibility. If you want to compare this scoring with any other town, let's say Kargil, which is up north of India, they have scored 2.8. Even in terms of sectoral performances, coming to sanitation, Chikbellapura municipality scores 3.5, whereas Kargil municipality scores 2 points. So this is the sort of ranking and point scoring system that we have developed, so that a comparative analysis can be drawn between municipalities, so that they are aligned with their objectives and goals. And this is also like way of represent. This is a SDG 6 profile that we are trying to give the municipality on a yearly basis, just so they understand at what position they are in right now, and also they prioritize their investments or planning accordingly. This is from Nepal and Bangladesh. I would not go into details here. This is just a profiling that we have been giving municipality on a regular basis, so that they can use these numbers. Now, specifically on SDG 6.3.3, I would like to spend a little time on in this particular slide. If you see, at least 70 to 80% of the municipality, they are still underperforming with respect to connection to household sewer system, adequacy of sewage treatment capacity, or when it sufficient having sufficient septage treatment capacity. Only in towns where the investment has been focused in particular town due to certain state missions, so there they have improved service delivery, but majority of the towns still underperforms when it comes to treatment of wastewater management or septage management in small towns. So with this, I would like to just share what are the key findings with respect to SDG 3.6.1 in small towns. One thing specifically for small towns, one thing that we have understood is there's a huge amount of wastewater, that is wastewater and fecal sludge generated ends up in open field. It is still happening at a grassroots level, at least with the 8 municipalities that we are working with. Majority of the municipalities still struggling to have a clear treatment system, or treat all of their waste at a point. And there is a narrow focus on centralized approach. So all main municipalities, small town municipality aspires to follow the footsteps of bigger municipality. So basically, in bigger municipalities, there is the approach taken by bigger municipality is generally centralized approach. So the smaller municipality also follow the footstep of bigger municipalities. Here, once managing centralized treatment system or sewer system in small municipality has been a challenge. They should be focusing on decentralized wastewater management system so far, but they have been doing centralized approach, and seldom they are often they are struggled with keeping the infrastructure in an operational condition. The third findings that we came up with, there is decrease in service quality of service delivery at the end of sanitation value chain. Basically, what comes at the end of sanitation value chain is basically treatment and reuse. Beginning of the sanitation value chain is mostly the user interface and collection and transportation. So basically, at the end of sanitation value chain, the more focus has been on the starting of the value chain, basically providing safe sanitation at a household level and transporting the waste from the household towards a far location. But at the end of sanitation service delivery, there has been a lesser focus from all 8 town municipalities. This is where the municipality is hardly struggling with. And we can say there is inadequate access to sanitation infrastructure services. Basically, when it comes to sewer and sanitation system at a larger level, which is at a treatment level, there is inadequate access for small town municipality. The last point is small town municipal official lacks understanding and exposure to decentralized technology. This connects with the second point which I made, that is focus on centralized approach. So municipality should have understanding on decentralized approach, so that the wastewater can be treated up at a community level or at a ward level, which is much more easily manageable for a small town municipality. So those are some of the findings that we came up with after we did an assessment of this framework regarding 3.6.1. Overall learnings, if I have to put out in 4 to 5 points, one is the framework has not been successfully integrated with municipal planning decision. So the municipality has a different tools. There is in India particularly, there is service level benchmark which the municipality generally follow, and most of the points which are there in service level benchmarking exercise is not aligned with SDG. So basically, we were not successfully able to integrate this particular framework with municipal planning decision. Hence, the investment on sanitation infrastructures are also ad hocly done. This is not based on a long-term vision. There is institutional limitation to upscale the tool in other small towns. Institutional limitation here, it means that basically for small towns, if following SDG goals is not mandated by state or national level. So small towns does not recognize or does not have a sense of SDG indicators or SDG goal. Small towns basically follow certain mechanism which is mandated by the state body or the center body, which does not include monitoring of SDG goals. One is national plan and strategies does not align with small town goals. Basically, if you see all the talkings regarding SDG 6 or SDG localization has been happening at a state level or at a national level. This has not trickled down to small town yet. So, so this alignment should be there between a national level, state level, and also the small towns. Small towns has to be considered while developing a national strategy, global strategy with respect to SDG localization. SDG monitoring, well, everyone say that monitoring or SDG the progress should happen from bottom to top level, but unfortunately the case that we are seeing in India, Nepal or Bangladesh is that it has always been a top down approach rather than bottom to top approach. Here all the goals, all the decisions are being made at a national level or at a state level, which is not directly imposed on the small towns as well. Here small towns are not considered during the planning process of SDG. Hence small towns does not have a sense of SDG progress, or also they're not working towards the 2030 vision as well. There are certain local development plans which are not linked with SDG at all, just because they have a completely parallel system where they follow their SDG, where they follow their planning process, but not through the SDG framework. So basically, all the development plans which are being planned in small towns are not linked with the ultimate goal of SDG here. So this is some of the learnings. We are planning to modify this particular framework so that municipalities are aligned with this particular framework, and it also aligns with state and national goals. This is an ongoing exercise we are still developing. In the next, particularly for the next coming years, we will have more consultation and probably try to align this particular framework with the municipality goals as well. So that is so basically that's the learning that we have. That one of the major thing that is coming out of it right now is small towns are not aligned or does not have a sense of SDG goals or SDG visions which are to be achieved by the end of 2030. Small towns are left out from the planning process, which are majorly done at a state or national level. So that's the key learning that we have got from this particular exercise. I would like to close my presentation with that final comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jivan Roy, for sharing with us quite detailed data about localizing SDG in 8 towns in South Asia. As we can see, some cities still have red colors from the sewage treatment, septic treatment, and we can discuss them later on at the discussion part. The next fourth presentation is from Lao PDR, Mr. Pankam Wongpachan will talk about sector development and policy for the SDG in Laos. Mr. Pankam, if you're ready, please share your screen and make 20-minute presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pankam Wongpachan. Actually, this presentation it should be presented by my deputy director, Mr. Wansawen Utatak, but he has the urgent meeting, so that's why I will present it for him. So let me share my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, it is okay. Thank you.
Okay. So the content today that I will present is the Ministry Public Works and Transport Vision to 2030. The second is the water supply sector. The third one is the sanitation sector, and last one is the budget plan for the development of the water supply and sanitation. For the Ministry of Public Works and Transport Vision to 2030, the strategy version is to develop public works and transport sector to be leading the specific priorities, highly effective, modern, safe, climate resilience, international and sustainable sector. The overall MPWT goals relate to the water supply and sanitation sector. There are the climate resilience. Second one is the sustainable urban development, and the third one is the social development, and the fourth one is the continue the economic growth, and the next is the balanced social economic development, and last one to the environmental improvement. For the overview of the water supply.
Can you just show one screen? Make it a full screen.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just choose one monitor.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the next is overview on the water supply sector in Lao PDR. So the key specifics, the key aspects of the sector reform, the tariff reform, the comments in 2008. Oh, sorry. 2008 to generate the greater level of the revenues. The attempt to improve the performance start in 2010 with the introduction of the KPIs. More effective management of the higher levels of the revenue start in 2012 through the corporate plannings. See the water supply coverage in 1995. We just have only the 5 water supply treatment plant, and also nowadays we have almost 174 water supply treatment plants. For we also just finished the vision and also strategy on water supply and sanitation sector. For the water supply sector, was vision 2002 to 2035. Sorry. So the vision is the safe, efficient, and affordable access to water service for all. And for the target to 2030 is under the sanitation strategy is the 90% of the population living in the provincial and district city with access to safely managed tap water. So the water supply strategies objectives, the one is the develop the institutional capacity in water supply. Second one is the develop and expand the water supply infrastructure to cover all provincial and industry city, small towns, especially the community zone. First one is the manage and develop raw water resource and infrastructure to ensure resilient to the climate change. And last one to establish the improve water supply and sanitation service performance monitoring and information systems. So the sector initiative with to assistance from ADB, the concept of the corporate planning was first pilot test in 2009. Soon after that was adopted all inclusive concessional finance assistance like a corporate plan is prepared over 3 to 5 years periods. Based on the demographics and consumption projection, the overall operation and maintenance expense and debt obligation, revenue based on the water bill and tariff levels, identify the tariff levels required over the planning period to meet all commitments and remain sustainable. So the common issues identify that tariff adjustment remain a considerable sensitive matter. High account receivable, some are in fact better and need to be written up. So we also using the smart water initiative, the GAS, into the installation the pipeline in the on the water supply. So the GAS, that's assess maintenance and management system. So we have tested some that's instead into that some area in northern and the Luang Prabang province. This one is the sanitation sector. So the wastewater management in urban areas is almost on-site disposal system of the human waste, black water with the insufficient functioning treatment. And also wastewater facilities need to be maintained system, maintained systemically with the proper drainage system. And centralized wastewater treatment system, or CWAT, is not economically justified. Just decentralized wastewater treatment system would play to a significant role in the sanitation sector. For the water supply, this one is the comparison region access to the self-sanitation in 2020. So now is the law is also we got only the 63.3% for the access to the safe sanitation. This one is just like a Latin there. So this one is the wastewater discharge in the Vientiane capital. The BOD that concentrating to rank from the 22 to 39 milligram per liter. That number is we collect in 2017. And also the wastewater in capital city is also the storm water drainage consists of the roadside drain leading ultimately to natural stream or rivers, maybe so canal. And also drain are generally not adequately interconnected and do not form the network. Drain are lined in the central areas and cover in front of the commercial establishment. For the vision to 2035 is the safe, efficient, and affordable sanitation service for all. This the goal. The goal that envision access to safe, efficient, and affordable sanitation service for all citizens of the country to contribute forward healthy city with the improved standard of living. The goal plan to implement this vision together with the strategy for water supply and urban development to ensure higher impact for beneficiaries. The goal envisioned that by 2035, the government would have provide safe and affordable access to all its citizens through the extensive collaboration with the private sector and well-performing sanitation operations. The goal envisages that the sanitation service would be well-regulated and financially sustainable. And also the staff at national and provincial level have received extensive training and capacity building and now more capable in the management and development. The country would have well-developed regulatory tools and guidelines to assist in management the sanitation service. And also the institutional framework will be detailed and have clearly the allocate rights and responsibility across all types of the stakeholder in the country. Also the 2030 target under the sanitation strategy. Also through this strategy, the goal aims to achieve the following the development target by the 2030. 100% of the population living in provincial and district capital to have access to individual toilets and safe managed sanitation service. And 50% of the wastewater generated in the provincial and district capitals was treated in post-blood and reuse. And it's also the strategy, this objective in our strategies. This first one is the organizational capacity at the central government and all provincial government are strengthened to extend that the managed development and sustainable operation of the sanitation service. And second one is develop and expand the sanitation infrastructure in all provincial and district capitals, small towns, special economic zones, and rural cluster with more than 100 households. The third one is the ensure that all sanitation infrastructure is resilient to climate change and integrate waste to energy and circular the economic principle where possible. And last one is the establish and improve the sanitation service performance monitoring and information system to be able to effectively plan, regulate, monitor the service. This one, the intervention in development of the policy and regulatory framework. The first one is the revise the water supply law and to the water supply and sanitation laws. The second one is the guideline on public-private partnership in water supply and also sanitation and local consultant, this one. And third one is the agreement on the wastewater price policy of the law PDR. The fourth one is the guideline for the setting the price structure for the wastewater treatment service. The fifth one is the guideline for the technical standard for the destinations wastewater treatment system in law PDR. Six is the manual on the management of safe wastewater and wastewater treatment system. Seven is the guideline for the management and evaluation of the sanitation service performance. Eight is the policy for the poor city to access the source of the funding for the sanitary infrastructure development in provincial and district municipalities, community, and also the rural in the village. Ninth one is the database system for the sanitation, and last one is the capacity building. And infrastructure development in the law is so the first is the project concept paper. The second one is the feasibility. Also this step, also the next is the feasibility study, and also the business case. Also that's the funding is grant. Also that is the budget plan for the development on the water supply and sanitation. That's estimated by the division. And first one is on the water supply. The water supply, that's the budget from the 2022 from now to the 2025. We need the more than 3,400 billion kip. Totally from the now to the 2030 is we need the more than 9,500 billion kip. For also the sanitation size, but we also need the budget totally is around more than 5,800 billion kip to develop the sanitation sector in our country. Okay, thank you. That's all my presentation.
Thank you very much, Kun Pankam, for this interesting data about plant sanitation, water supply for Laos PDR. Now the session open for discussion, comment from the audience. We have now 4 presentations from Southeast Asia, from South Asia. If you have questions, please speak up or raise your hand or put in chat box. If not, maybe I start first. Okay, Mr. Hubert Jenny, your presentation, you discuss about achievement target beyond 6.3.1, which is of course very ambitious, but very encouraging. But what about the affordability and also the willingness to pay? You think most people in Southeast Asia would be willing to do that and to achieve your plan beyond 6.3.1? You think that the IMAS data Mr. Bhushan Lashreta present might be helpful or not? Mr. Hubert Jenny, could you please respond first, and then Mr. Shreta second. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, it's always tricky. I feel, I mean, SDG 6.3.1 is really setting the bar very low, and we're talking about access to sanitation, where even I think the wording might be sustainable sanitation, but you know, what does it mean? Does it mean that if you have on-site sanitation that is good enough? What about the operation and maintenance of the sanitation facility? What about the climate proofing of the sanitation infrastructure? What about having a low carbon development pathway? And the proposal is that sanitation is generating so much socio-economic benefit and co-benefit, environmental benefit, climate benefit. It is considered public good. And therefore, there is, to me, a duty from the government to put some public funding in order to promote SDG 6.3.1 and to ensure by all means, and by all means I mean by being flexible on the regulation and the effluent standard, like I was mentioning, you know, if you set BOD discharge 20 milligram per liter, you basically preclude any primary treatment. You need a secondary treatment to achieve those facilities. And it's too expensive and it's too complex to operate for some country, for some cities, or some area to have community development of such system. And if you don't comply with the national legislation, the Ministry of Construction or equivalent that has to approve the technical design of your project will basically reject it and say, look, this does not comply with our legislation. Therefore, you have to build something that is comply with those legislation. That's why I say those countries shoot themselves in the foot. But the fact that sanitation is a public good justify the use of public subsidies to promote sanitation project. The problem, in my opinion, is that sanitation is not a priority of the central government, of the local government, and the community themselves. Like I mentioned, this project in Vietnam where we had a revolving fund, community was choosing, okay, we want to have a bridge across the river so that it's shorter to go to school. We want to repave the road because each time it rains, we cannot go and get out. And we say, what about, or they want drinking water, tap water, if they don't have. But sanitation comes very last. So you have to do this advocacy work. You have to do this building awareness at the government level, but also at the community level, so that it can become a priority, and therefore prioritize the use of public money to subsidize those services within the condition of willingness to pay and affordability. The more awareness you build, the more people are willing to pay, and affordability can be basically worked out with public subsidy for the vulnerable group of the population. I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
Mr. Shrestha, please have comments about your IMIS data. Would that be even helpful for achieving? And also, like Mr. Jivan Roy said, for 8 towns in South Asia, some cities still had red color in scoring sewage septic treatment. Mr. Shrestha, how can IMIS help?
Yeah. IMIS, I think will help on creating the data set. Yeah, so it will I mean help in that case, like Mr. Jivan Roy, he has he did the research and he come up with some idea, some output, some findings. But if we have IMIS there, then it can be continuously monitoring. It can be monitoring continuously. No? So you don't need to work again and do research. Once he has done that, and he has already set up all the indicators and localization of the indicators, those things can be integrated in the IMIS. So in future, the IMIS will generate those data. So you don't need to do it manually, or you don't need to do and go research again. It can be generated through IMIS itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jivan Roy, based on your data presenting, you think that those 8 towns can achieve the SDG 6.3.1 in the year 2030, or how to achieve that one? Thank you.
So basically, the 8 towns which I was talking about is 8 small towns. So these towns have a population less than 1 lakh. So basically, one general understanding of small towns is they lack technical capacity, they lack funding investment, they lack manpower. So basically, small towns does not get much of the focus from the central government. So either it's bigger city or the rural area. Small towns is somewhere in between, which is not getting enough attention. So if we see, if I have to talk about the trend, if we continue with this trend, I think the central government is slowly picking up, I think in both India, Nepal and Bangladesh as well, slowly picking towards investing more towards smaller towns and increasing their capacity. So as I mentioned during the presentation as well, SDG, monitoring SDG should not be just limited to a state level or at a center level, unless the true meaning of SDGs are trickled down to smaller towns. Achieving SDG would be difficult, specifically for small towns, because they do not have any sense unless the investments are specifically focused on small towns to achieve those goals and set timely targets so that they can achieve these goals by 2030. Then only it is possible. I'm only talking about the small towns which does not get enough limelight. So all the investments are in the bigger towns, but the small towns suffer always. So unless there is a clear strategy to achieve certain goals, it would be still difficult by 2030. That would be my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now go to Mr. Pankam Mongpachan. Mr. Pankam, yeah, your presentation about the target of 2030 is very good. 50% or 100% of people access to toilet, 50% of wastewater treated. This is exactly the goal of 6.3.1. But you talk about the budget requirement. I think a lot of money keep more than 5 billion. Where will the money come from? Will the people have to be charged for the service of sanitation, or how to achieve that one, and so on? Thank you.
So thank you for the question. Actually, this one is the budget that we estimate during we make the strategy. But I think if we have the how to say, the donor, also the how to say, public-private partnership is also have participated in our, I think. I don't know how to answer, but that's one. If we have a lot of if we have the donor, also the sponsor, also the investment on the investor to this sector, maybe it will be achieved to the target. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yes, we all want to help each other. Yeah. Are there any comments or questions from the audience? If not, then may I invite Mr. Hendra Gupta to say a few words and concluding remarks.
Can I say just a quick comment if we still have some times?
Yes, Mr. Florian, please.
I would just to congratulate, and the last presenter was really interesting because it was also an integrated approach, but covering all the aspects from law and regulation, tariff and financing, but also at the national level from a ministry perspective. And it was also very interesting for me to see that there are some value for the wastewater production in Laos, and also looking at the water quality and BOD. So I would just like to congratulate this last presentation, which was very interesting. And if there is any possibility to collaborate or to support and to report this data on our UNSD questionnaire, that would be really interesting for us. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Is there any other comment from participants? If not, then allow me to conclude with closing remarks. Thank you very much for the presenters. 4 presenters have been showing a lot of efforts on the ground, which apparently we are focusing so much now on SDG 6.2. And as mentioned precisely by Mr. Hubert Jani, that SDG 631 is quite new, and yeah, a very low bar set considering the current focus on 632. We need to advocate the questionnaire SDG 631 to the users, such as the SDG Secretariat offices, also ministries and water utilities. And I think from the experience today, I captured that we need to advocate the questionnaire of SDG 631 to tool developers as well. Tool developers such as IMIS tool, and also the current tool that is utilized by Mr. Jivan Roy and also Mr. Bhushan Shrestha. The second one is how to create co-benefits, not only in the groundworks, when you lay pipes for sanitation, for example, to increase access, you create also co-benefits for health, but also creating co-benefits of existing efforts in developing SDG 632 and SDG 631. So we need to expand or also upgrade the tools that we are currently using. IMIS is a powerful planning tool, allowing spatial scenarios for decision-making. I think you can see from the presentation of Mr. Bhushan, number of households and non-domestic establishment to plan, and also some priority areas and design investment. The question is, again, how do we integrate SDG 631 to the current IMIS to capture volumetric load and also the quality of the wastewater? So not only the amount of peoples that are going to be connected or going to be served, but also the existing volumetric loads and also the quality of the wastewater. I see a potential of linking the practice in Thailand through the DSPOT system, which is also supported by GIZ Thailand, to the existing IMIS. And this will enable recording of wastewater quantity and quality, embedded that into the current planning system. However, the creators and users of tools therefore needs to expand the current capacity of the tools and also the current capacity of data use. Learning also from Lao PDR, Mr. Pankam. I think in Lao, currently most of the household, they're using the on-site system. Decentralized systems are gaining popularities, more and more treatment are installed, and there are one or two, several centralized systems in the country. And for sure, Lao PDR requires or needs a database for those wastewater treatment assets. It's an asset, and its operation and maintenance should be established. So I think it's the time for Mr. Pankam and his colleagues in Lao to start creating an asset database and also operation and maintenance, as mentioned by Mr. Hubert, to be able to collect data and to be able to collect it regularly. And also learning from Mr. Jivan Roy that SDG localization benchmarking and performance threshold, I think linking to the experience in Laos, where they specify a clear target in 2030 of halving the untreated wastewater. I think it's good to have this data or on benchmark and also performance threshold of the current existing situation. So link that with your assets, operation and maintenance, data collection, at least to start with the current data for benchmarking and performance. And last but not least, with many focusing on domestic wastewater from household sources, I think the first question would be, how do we trigger, data transition from providing access to recording volume and also quality of wastewater? The second one is, how do we step up the game, integrating industrial wastewater, at least located in the cities? So those are closing remarks, some points that I capture from the presentations and discussions today. Hopefully, this can be beneficial for us to adopt SDG questionnaire for SDG 631 in our countries. Thank you very much, and see you in the next webinars. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.